Hello, I'm here having a great chat with Ricky Belcastro, a
Hi,
fantastic composer of this area here that Mélomanie had the fortune of performing one of his works. And actually, one of his works is featured on an upcoming CD that we are releasing sometime this season. And so it's great to see you, Ricky.
good to see you too.
Hey, and
How have you been?
pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. Trying
Right.
to negotiate technology like this, but so far this looks okay to me. We're talking about one piece that is your piece that's featured in our CD.
Yes,
It is Buddleja Davidii, if I'm pronouncing that right.
it's got a few options. That I think is one of them.
So when I looked it up, it's nothing. It's a butterfly bush.
It's just a plant.
I can say that, but Buddleja Davidii.
It doesn't sound as cool as a title though, Butterfly Bush.
That's true. That's a totally different thing. Yeah. And I just wanted to see one thing. I actually have a butterfly bush here. I just want to screen share this for 1 sec here. Hold on, if
Okay.
I'm able to do this. Do you see that? Does it appear on your screen?
Absolutely. Yep.
So this is what we're talking about, right?
That is exactly what we're talking about.
That is beautiful.
Pretty,
So
yeah.
can you tell us a little bit like what prompted you to write this piece for Mélomanie? Why is it called what it is called? What is just talk let us know about what you think about all this.
Well, sure. Initially, Tracy was interested in commissioning a new work, and I went over to her place to talk through options. And I mentioned to her that I played the sitar, um, and lights went off, and she was excited about doing something with it. Um, Bringing in myself as a guest artist for a piece is not the usual. But I haven't had a lot of opportunities to play my sitar in context outside of solo ones. So it was a really cool opportunity. And just thinking about the sounds of the harpsichord and some of the sounds of the sitar and how they might interlink started to get us excited about it. And yeah, I think that's where the why.
Yeah.
Now the title, it's the timing of the thing. I had recently moved at the commissioning of the piece into the house I'm living in. And out back, they had a massive butterfly bush. And, I had never had one before. This was a new thing to me. And seeing just the immense number of butterflies and moths and bees and anything and everything swarming around this thing constantly. I mean, there'd be no short of 20 to 30 butterflies on it at a time. It was great. And so often, whenever I'm writing a piece, titles come, at any time. It could be the inspiration for the piece. It could be something that clicks while I'm writing it, or it could be something at the end that just seems to fit. And in the case of this one, it was in the process that I really started to think about form and structure and some of the ideas of this, swarming sounds around the resonance of the sitar. So you have that uniqueness of the sitar really is the sympathetic strings and that sort of natural reverb that exists in the instrument. And to me, that mixing with the different sounds of Mélomanie really matched with this idea of the butterfly bush to me. And so that's really the connection that led to it. Sadly, that bush died.
Oh no.
Yeah, but last year we planted a new one, and
Okay.
well, it's only about 3 feet tall. It's still doing its job. It wasn't about
That's
to go
great.
without one.
Yeah, that's great. Remember when we showed up for rehearsals first for your piece? As soon as you brought that huge case in, this instrument case, and then unpacked the sitar, it was spectacular. It's like a showstopper. It's such a just the instrument itself is unbelievably beautiful, and then to
Absolutely.
hear you play it, it's just it's unbelievable. It's just yeah, it was really moving for everybody I think in the ensemble, and it's every rehearsal we had kind of the same reaction. It's a little bit of a wow reaction, and then the concert too. It's just an incredible beautifully instrumented the way you play it, obviously. But it would be great in this interview to have just to see the instrument. And I don't know if it's possible to play a couple
Yeah,
of chords or
absolutely.
sound.
Yeah, in prepping for this, I dusted it off. It's been a little bit since I've had well, just for a bit of fun. There's a lot of things that I play, and
Wow, yeah.
it's one of them.
There it is. One of the things don't look like the other. Yeah, there's one different one.
Exactly. So while I've spent a bit more time on the others with my recent writing, actually the latest piece I wrote was a solo ukulele, which I'll have to send you the recording. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, let me pull the sitar over.
Okay.
So anything unique about this one? There are a few things. One, it's a custom build from a builder named Tony Karasek, who currently lives just outside of Chicago. But he was Ravi Shankar's tech on the road for, I think, about 10 years, and spent a lot of time with high-end instruments. And then when he moved back to the States, started building custom instruments. And this is the first one that he built after moving back. So we had a lot of talks about what I wanted and things that he was trying to innovate, and that kind of stuff was cool. If you see most sitars, you'll see gaps between some of the frets. Mine is fretted all the way. This allows for some non-traditional stuff to be a bit easier. Again, I'm used to fretted instruments, so not a bother. But in traditional Indian music, you have your raga and a set scale that you start to derive things from, and then lots of rules around that, but we won't go into that. But you would set the frets, because they're movable, into the place that is best suited for the raga. To make it simple, if you wanted to play a C major scale, you set the fret so that E is natural. If you wanted a C minor scale, you would push the fret back so you get your E flat, and you'll never make a mistake because the fret's not there. But yeah, that's the basic concept of that. Sound-wise, everybody would be watching this would see all sorts of pegs up and down the instrument. So the tiny pegs are sympathetic strings. Those are the things we talked about that are resonating out as a natural reverb. And then the larger pegs up at the top are your main playing strings. So there's strings on the top of the instrument, and there's a bunch of strings under it. And those run underneath the frets. So if I hit a given note, you have that echo. I don't know if it comes through on this. So that extra echoing sound is a huge part of what gives the sitar its unique quality. The other aspect of it is the bridge. And if you see the bridge on these instruments, if I can get it close, it's quite flat and thick.
Yeah.
Now you obviously are used to bridges with a very fine point on your violin, right?
Right.
So that hard edge gives you a clear and clean note. This is sort of like an airplane wing. It slowly slopes back and forth. So the string comes off the edge of the bridge at a gradual angle. That angle, when you strike the string, gives a little buzz there, sort of like a sul ponticello type concept, where you're getting something different by getting those harmonics at the bridge end.
That's right.
And so that kind of nasally character to it is because of that. That's one of the characteristics. Then similarly to like a banjo, I mean, if you've seen a 5-string banjo, they have the high, I believe it's a C, at the top side of the fingerboard that's used kind of in the claw hammer style and other things. You can get this high note on the low end. So with the sitar, we have the same thing. These high strings. In this case, there's 4 of them. Some players play with 2, 3, but they're all accents. They're pre-tuned, and I can play them as accompaniment. So you can have sort of a vocal quality. And you can be your own accompanist. But you can pretty much play one chord while you do it.
Yeah.
And that's an element of the instrument that when treating it outside of the traditional way, creates all sorts of problems. And that's where the challenge and interest in writing something for Mélomanie was for me.
So there's one thing that if I can jump in. Interestingly enough, the harpsichord and the sitar actually were an incredibly beautiful blend, and you actually added a small sort of cadenza type improvisation in the middle of the piece.
Yeah.
Where it went back and forth between Tracy on the harpsichord and you on the sitar, this dialogue. There was actually, even though such different worlds, but an incredible match at the same time, because of the sonority of the harpsichord, the plucking of the string there.
It has that also, because of the way it's struck, the harpsichord has that nasally, almost, similar timbres, and they blend extremely well. I was pleasantly surprised by how well they clicked, yeah. Which I think was part of why writing for this with Mélomanie it sat perfectly with the group.
So Ricky, another thing I wanted to just, bring up, because we talked a little about improvisation. I mean, that cadenza was, I think you guys were kind of making it up to a certain extent. And to me, the piece felt somewhat like it had an improvisational aspect to it, even though, music is such a rigorous language. If you think about musical notation, it's so precise in some ways. And when we were figuring out the parts that you'd written for us, it took a while to really make sure we are holding it the right amount of time and all that, they're being very strict in some ways. And then when you end up playing the piece, the result is that it's something very fluid. It doesn't come out strict at all. It's very improvisational. It's just sort of floating in space, which was actually amazing. And that comes more into you as a composer. If that's something, I don't know, if that's something common in your music, or if you think of stuff it should sound like it's being made up or made.
No. There is, one of the difficulties in new music often is that a lot of pieces are given very little time, especially around premieres. A common practice is 2 to 3 rehearsals and a performance, and then the piece is done. I mean, to the extent that the people who commissioned it have done their job and the composer has a recording, and that is so not enough time to know a piece and perform a piece and really represent what's on the page. But it gets the technical down. Mm-hmm. And for me, a lot of the things, it's like, architects are very specific. Everything in a house has to be exactly as they've drawn it. The construction side of it has some improvisation. Something doesn't come out quite right, or it turns out that the owner decides a window should be a little bit different than it is, so they move it a little, but that changes the measurement here. And in the end, the house is better for the final product, but it isn't what the architect drew. Mm-hmm. And I look at my scores like that. There is a skeletal structure that's very well represented on that page, but is nothing like the real piece. And so once we got there, and I think this was part of what I really enjoyed about being the guest artist with this from the beginning, was that, we spent a lot of time getting everything right. And once everybody was comfortable being right, then we could start to play music. Mm-hmm. And that meant taking freedoms, liberties, in infusing your own interpretations into it. I mean, everybody in that ensemble at some point had suggestions for how we might do things a little differently. There are changes to the final score that came through that process because those suggestions improved the piece. And for me, it's a growing and organic document, simply a place to start. And all of my scores really are that. And depending on the performer who takes them on, the degree to which that's comfortable and that they can really run with that is drastically different. But the synergy's right, it's great.
The one thing I wanted to just say is also what an incredible pleasure it was for the group to perform with you. And as I mentioned, that sound of the sitar in rehearsals and in concerts, it's always transports the whole group sort of in a different direction, and it's magical. And I hope that that the audience will get a little bit of a sense of that in the CD, and at some point, I'm sure we get to perform it live again. But
absolutely, but that recording process, that was something.
That was something.
I mean, that's something I think that people on the other end of it, what goes into making a great recording, a document of what the work is supposed to be, is, hugely more involved than getting it just on stage.
Right. Yeah.
And while there's a lot of, it's valuable and it's enriching to be on stage, the interpersonal connections and the living in the moment. But as a composer, being able to really get it right, a definitive version is really wonderful. So after going through all the edits, all the, mixing, everything that had to be there, and finally really hearing this recording, I couldn't stop listening to it. This is absolutely incredible, and I'm thrilled to get this out. Can't wait for people to hear it. I think they're going to love it.